I remember seeing the food guide pyramid roughly about like 5th or 6th grade, right? And I saw, okay, eat a lot of grains, eat a lot of carbs and all this kind of thing. And so naturally, my family was already doing that because I come from an Asian family, so I never thought I was really doing anything wrong until I got to where I started to play athletics.
Yes.
And I realized that a lot of people in my family were overweight and obese. For the betterment of like me seeing what I didn't want to become when I got older, I saw them inject themselves with insulin, have to take a lot of medications, and I said, this can't be health.
Right.
And this is not how I'm going to personally end up. So I think at a very young age, I was actually able to take a lot of responsibility for my own health because I realized that if I didn't take responsibility, if I played the victim, or that this is just my genetics or whatever it is, if I didn't take ownership over it, the inevitable was going to happen.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 strength and health authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode here on the Strong by Design podcast. We are in a new setup, a little bit new, something different. I told you we did some spring cleaning in the newer year.
I like your digs, man.
Yeah. We've moved into the corner of the compound, have a little bit of a different setup. We have this desk. It's a great desk that was underutilized. It was sitting over there, and we made some moves, and I'm liking this.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Are you feeling it?
I gave a lot of compliments as I was walking in because I know our last podcast, we were in the other room and we were sitting there, and I was kind of assuming it'd be the same. And then when I walked in, I saw lights, camera, action. Like, this is legit.
Yeah. No, we've stepped up our game a little bit. I mean, if you think about it, it's fun to see the evolution of something, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's, in the compound itself with like how this gym is like changed. And the last time you were here, we didn't have that awesome leg press, I think. And, but with the show, like you see like, how you're paying attention to lighting, you're paying, maybe you get a better microphone or you get a better camera or you get a sign behind the guest and this stuff doesn't just happen right out of the gate. Like no one really starts a podcast and has all this stuff ready to go. You gotta, it's a slow burn. Yeah. Kind of like a metabolism, right? the slow burn that
I think the demand for quality is obviously there. And obviously you guys as a company are always trying to level up and make things the best for the end consumer.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So people that are watching the show, maybe they saw the old show, but now they're seeing this. Yeah. It's not only exciting for us as the creators, but it's also exciting for those that are absorbing the content.
That's right. No, you want it to feel like a professional kind of big thing because these conversations over the years continue to be fantastic. We have great guests like our dear friend who I haven't even introduced yet, but we love to see this show continue to grow and develop and improve, and we want it to be everything that we kind of have in our heads, the vision that we have for it has really kind of, I think we're there now. We've arrived finally after all these years, and it's been just so much fun. So who is our special guest today on Strong by Design? We are talking, no doubt, about something that affects every listener, from children into seniors. This is a highly contested, controversial, debated topic, something certainly in our industries for the last 25 years it's your main thing. It's a huge part of how we operate and things that we do in our business as well. And when it comes to people achieving optimal health, it's really the tip of the iceberg. It's the starting point for really getting to your goal physique or your goal weight or your goal body and your ultimately really good health. And so our guest today, William Grazione, the educated dieter, he's a past guest on the show. In fact, I think the last time you were on the show, it was you and Mike and I, and we were in our break room area. And we had an amazing conversation then. I'm trying to even it was years ago now. This must be 5 years ago. And was it around the time when we were working with you? Or no, It might, so
Towards
in
the
about
end of
4
that.
years, towards
Yep.
the end of the time when he and I were working with you. That was an awesome experience, by the way. And that'll probably come up a little bit more as we talk. But Will is a man of faith. And we have spent a lot of hours together in our Saturday morning men's group over the years. So I just love his heart. He's just such a good man. He's a great husband, a great father of 4 children, 1 grown who lives across the country now, 3 younger ones at the house, his beautiful wife, Tanya, who's an amazing person in her own right. And Will has been in business now for many years. You'll find out about his kind of newer aspect of his business. But the Educated Dieter, if you're looking for a platform that's going to deliver on how to really improve your health, how to learn the ways to do it, that there is a system to follow and there are steps to take, and it's actually not as complicated and confusing as everyone has probably been feeling over the last 30 plus years. And so I welcome Will back to the podcast. It's so great to have you, dude. I think, was it Mike or me who did I reach out to you about this topic because this was like in the news, and I'm like, dude, I have to have you in so we can talk about this.
So it was funny because originally you had reached out to me in a text message, and we were kind of going back and forth.
Yeah.
And then like right after we had the conversation in text message about it, I'm not even kidding you.
Okay, that's
the Food Guide Pyramid Instagram started popping up all over my phone, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So it's kind of been like a 2-week thing in the works where we saw it come out. We wanted to talk about it. And then now the good thing is that with online platforms like we have from a social media perspective, I think now more than ever, if anything was going to have an impact, it's now because of the way that tech is. But like if you circle back to 1992 when the Food Guide Pyramid came out, I mean, only those few spoiled people that either had a computer that they could go online and look for it, but now it's popping up on everybody's phone, millions and millions of platforms all across the world, right? So it's like it's so much more absorbent now because we have these electronic outlets where people can just absorb information. Yeah,
I mean, think about that, right? Prior to 92, which is funny, that's the advent of the internet, by the way, too. I think it's the same year. Prior to that, getting information in a timely fashion was, kind of like took a matter of days or weeks sometimes, right? Or for certain stories to even kind of be newsworthy or discussed on the evening news or something. Like now everything is instantaneous, which I don't is good and bad. I think we're all overwhelmed with the amount of stuff coming at us. I've heard and read many times we are hit with 5,000 ads a day. Just across everything, from driving in our vehicles to being at home on the sofa to scrolling on our phone to everything that we do, we're bombarded, and a lot of it's crap. You don't know where it's coming from. Or contrary to that, your platform and your information in this topic in particular is fantastic. And that's what we're trying to, at the end of the day with this, people are going to love all these things that you shared today, but I would love for people to just end up on your platform because this just is your wheelhouse. That's why I thought of you instantly when this was in my heart and in my mind, and then it was started like popping up in the news. I'm like, I have to get Will back in here because this is his thing. So this is our core thesis. I have like a whole printout here because I didn't want to miss anything. Sometimes like if I don't create bullet points, I'll skip over stuff. The food pyramid didn't just recommend foods, and this is the 1992 food pyramid that we all can kind of envision in our head with all the bread and the cereals and the pastas and everything at the bottom as our 6 to 11 servings. It helped normalize a way of eating that aligned perfectly with cheap, ultra-processed products. I think we can all agree on that. It combined with political pressure, industry influence, and a distorted food environment, and became a historic public health failure. And anybody who works in this industry, I think, kind of sees it as that in terms of what it was recommended as kind of the basis or foundation of our caloric intake was we should eat more cereal, we should eat more bread, we should eat more pasta, we should eat more rice, and that should be the basis of our food intake every day. And so that's kind of alarming because I think we all know on some level that that's not really correct. And it was really catering to big industry, big money, and all these, the Nabiscos and all these big brands that were out there that could produce stuff that goes on a shelf in a box and wrapper and just sit there for months and weeks on end. For years,
It doesn't
really.
even go bad.
It doesn't even go bad. You ever look at an expiration date for a box of cereal?
Yeah.
And I'm not perfect. Like I'll have a bowl of cereal, as like that to me, it's dessert. But like that stuff's good for like a year or two. It's like, that's ridiculous, right? How can that be healthy?
Right.
How can that be good for you? So I wanted to just start off with, what was your first interaction, if you will, with the food pyramid as a professional, either as a kid or because this is like our lives, right? Like when that came out, I would have been 16. You're a little bit younger than I, but not all that much younger. So you grew up with the food pyramid, right? In the 90s and stuff. So how did that impact you, or what's your earliest recollection of it? Let me ask you something real quick. When was the last time you did something intentional for your brain? Not for vanity and not for performance, but so you can stay sharp and present and fully there for the people that you love. Because here's the truth, as we get older, mental clarity doesn't fade overnight, it slips quietly. Names, focus, energy, patience, and the people who feel it first aren't us. It's our spouse, it's our kids, even our grandkids. That's why I take NeuroThrive every single day. It supports the mitochondria in your brain, the tiny engines that power memory, focus, and mental energy, so you can stay sharp and engaged, not checked out. And for Valentine's Day, we're doing something special just for Strong by Design listeners. Right now, you can buy 2 bottles and get 1 free. 1 for you, 1 for someone you love, and 1 to keep as a backup. Just go to criticalnutritionlabs.com/strong by design. No code, no guesswork. But this offer only runs through February 14th. Take care of your brain because the people you love are counting on you.
Before I dive in, I want to say real quick that a lot of the things that I'm going to say are going to be context dependent.
Yes.
Okay. And so whoever's listening to the show needs to understand that the recommendations that I will make have all to do with where you are right now. So I think a really good nutritionist, what they do is they're capable of meeting you exactly where you are and ultimately helping you to get out of that place of metabolic, maybe dis-ease that you may be in,
yes,
and get you back to a place of metabolic health, okay? So with everything that we're going to say, I think it's important to understand that good, bad, indifferent, or neutral, there are things that are going to be good for us. There are inherently things that are going to be bad for us, but most of the time, if we can live kind of in that gray space and understand that as long as we check the most important boxes, we can make a really big impact on your health.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So before we dive into that, as a kid, I remember seeing the food guide pyramid roughly about like 5th or 6th grade, right? And I saw, okay, eat a lot of grains, eat a lot of carbs and all this kind of thing. And so naturally, my family was already doing that because I come from an Asian family, so I never thought I was really doing anything wrong until I got to where I started to play athletics.
Yes.
And I realized that a lot of people in my family were overweight and obese. My mom, my uncle, my grandmother, everybody was very heavy, and I also got to, grow up. And for the betterment of like me seeing what I didn't want to become when I got older, I saw them inject themselves with insulin, have to take a lot of medications, and I said, this can't be health.
Right.
And this is not how I'm going to personally end up. So I think at a very young age, I was actually able to take a lot of responsibility for my own health because I realized that if I didn't take responsibility, if I played the victim, or that this is just my genetics or whatever it is, if I didn't take ownership over it, the inevitable was going to happen. And the inevitable was...
You saw your future in your relatives.
I saw my future in my relatives, I knew that I had the same genetics as maybe my uncle and my mom, and I knew that I didn't want to end up looking like that. Not to mention at that time, I just saw the visual representation of what it looked like to be unhealthy. But I didn't internally understand that what's going on inside that's making them look that way. Yeah. So we're talking about the high inflammatory responses. We're talking about the type 2 diabetes. We're talking about the obesity and all the other, cofactors that come along with it. Now, with the onset of being able to look at blood work and actually figure out what's going on, we can really help just about anybody improve the status of metabolic health right now. So I saw that at a very young age, and I just realized that I had to take ownership over my health. And the biggest pillar that I think made the most sense to me was I just need to work out. Like, I just need to actually train. Right. I just need to play sports. Maybe I want to, maybe you're a soccer player. Maybe you want to play football. Maybe you want to do track and field, volleyball, basketball, whatever it is, just move your body, right? But in today's society, kids are not moving their bodies as much as they were back then, right? It was normal to see 5 to 10 bikes at your friend's house growing up as a kid, right? And everybody's riding around on their bikes.
That was now, dude. That was the '80s, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, for you, maybe it was that way. Wherever you are, like as a kid, you just never stopped moving. I mean, you weren't sitting at home inside doing stuff with your buddies. It was outside building forts. Running around with a ball on your bikes, in the woods doing stuff, like just anything to move. Yeah. And so, it was rare to see an obese kid.
Now it's incredibly rare to see that, though, right? Those kids are glued to their electronic devices. Kids are getting phones at 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And adults can't even handle the dopamine addiction. Yep. You think your 10-year-old child can handle the dopamine addiction. So we're kind of raising a culture or a society that kind of biases less activity, more consumption, not only electronic consumption, but food consumption.
Yes.
So if we believe that, hey, this box is cereal because it says it has vitamins and minerals, this should be the foundation of everything that you eat.
It says 100% for all these vitamins. It must be good.
This should be the foundation of all the things that you eat on a 24-hour time basis when you're not expending enough energy. That, I believe, is the problem.
Yeah.
And so I will say this. I think that the onset of the 1992 food guide pyramid, I think you could have made it work. But at the same time, it didn't bias strength and lean body mass and fat loss. I think the 2011 version, which transitioned to iPlate, which was significantly better.
Yes.
It did bias more protein, a little bit less carbohydrate, bias fruits, vegetables, and even some dairy. I think that could work. The new model, I think it can work, but the reality is that I think people are kind of looking for this saving grace. They're like, this is what I need. But the reality is it's not the tool that's going to get you there. It's your ability to take the tool and go to work.
That's right.
That's going to help you achieve your goals.
And I want to say, because you said a lot of good things there, and that's why I was like writing like notes to myself. But I think one of the underlying things that certainly made this all terribly difficult for everyone was the addiction associated with the food items, the ultra-processed food items, the things that were in those foods that were just highly addictive, like an alcoholic becomes addicted to alcohol, to beer, like a drug user becomes addicted to different drugs, whatever those are. We became addicted to not broccoli and chicken and fish. We became addicted to cereals and to sugary treats, to crackers and cookies, and eat things that were just easy to eat in a package that could sit forever in our cupboards, and were relatively cheap. That factored in too, right? It's really, people are going to spend money on things that they can afford, and whole foods, healthy foods are more expensive.
They are very affordable. They're very easy to grab. And with the onset of this new lifestyle craze of go,
yes.
grab.
Yep. Convenience.
Yes, they are convenient. But that doesn't mean they're the best for us from a health perspective. Yeah. Now, I'm never going to blame a food company or a manufacturer or anybody like that. I always have to look at the individual. And I have to say, what is the individual missing to where they're not able to make a logical decision on a normal basis to prioritize their health. So just as an example, it's normal for people to wake up, grab a cup of coffee, or go through the drive-thru and get a cup of coffee. That's normal. But the last time that I worked out of a Starbucks, I saw people consistently walking into the Starbucks and pouring 20, 40, or even 50 grams of sugar into their coffee.
But now what's in your, now, listen, I am a coffee connoisseur, if you will, a real amateur one. I love coffee. I love good coffee. Typically made at my house because we're a little bit picky, my wife and I, about like good stuff. So we usually buy it from like Sprouts or we get the whole beans and I grind it at home. I don't have like a whole crazy setup. I just have kind of a regular coffee maker, but I at least like a good coffee that's fresh. And so when you get your coffee, I'm sure you make it at home. I'm sure because I've seen you drinking coffee in our meetings and stuff and stuff. And then what do you put in it? What do you get your coffee?
Yeah. So normally what I like to do is from a foundational perspective. So I think about this as like nutritional awareness.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I consume something, I'm logically thinking about calorie consumption.
Yes.
Which this whole thing is going to be about. Like the macro picture is going to be calorie consumption.
Yeah. Yep.
But if I'm thinking about coffee, I'm not thinking about coffee as a calorically dense food item. So therefore, traditional plain black coffee doesn't have any calories.
Correct.
So when I'm drinking coffee, I'm not drinking any calories. I'm using it for the psychological benefit I get from it, the small metabolism boost I get from it, and then also just to help me super hyperfixate on what's most important in that moment.
Wow.
Right? So like I time it with work and I time it with a workout, but I don't overly consume it like all throughout the day.
Yes.
The difference is that some people, when they walk into Starbucks and they're getting the latte, frappuccino,
anything that adds
added sugar, whipped cream,
anything that has 8 syllables,
caramel drizzle on top, like all that, they don't know that they're consuming between 50 and 80 grams of sugar. Now, if we understand the value of 1 gram of carbohydrate, it's 4 calories.
Correct.
So they could be drinking 2, 3, or even 400 calories in their morning coffee before they even eat breakfast. So then we're talking about, well, it's easy to then become in a calorie overage based off of what your metabolism can metabolize.
That one beverage.
400 calories right over your threshold, right? And it's like, well, how do I get that back? If you're not exercising, very hard to get that back. If you are exercising, I wouldn't say it's easy to get it back, but you can at least stay neutral. If you're over-consuming the carbohydrates that you were referring to, which is these ultra-processed food items, you ever notice that you can eat a bowl of cereal, and if you just eat the bowl of cereal, which is what most people do,
yes,
you're immediately hungry 30 minutes to 45 minutes later.
I was going to say, within an hour, you're ready to go again.
Unless you pair it with protein and vegetables.
Yes, correct.
That will help offset. But the thing is these ultra-processed foods that are being manufactured, because these companies know you're going to buy them. It's not their fault. You're buying it, right? They know you're going to buy them, and they know you're going to eat them. And if you eat a bowl of cereal, there's a large likelihood you're probably going to eat another one. And then you're probably going to have another one. Now, that could be Pop-Tarts, that can be pastries, that can be juices, that can be, in this specific scenario, could also be coffee because you're just putting sugar into your body. And usually once you get that insulin spike, because your pancreas is going to release a lot of insulin, and as your blood sugar is going up, and then as you crash, what happens is you typically get hungry. So these are where people that maybe they take a meal to work or they're ordering food for lunch or whatever, they eat a lot of carbohydrates in that meal, and then they're like, head hits the desk at like 1 o'clock, oh my God, I'm so tired. I must need to go get another coffee or I must need to go get another snack.
Yes.
But the reality is that we're avoiding foods that are phenomenal for satiety.
Yes.
The foods that are the best for satiety are going to be things that take up a lot of volume, that have a lot of micronutrients. So think about colorful fruits and vegetables, all the ones that you love. Whatever type of salad, cucumber, squash, zucchini, asparagus, cucumbers, lettuce.
All your peppers.
All those amazing things. All the peppers and onions. And then you have all the whole variety of fruits. You've got your kiwis. You've got berries of all sorts. You got oranges, bananas, all of it. Those are very high in micronutrients. And it's important to understand that the micronutrients will essentially dictate how you feel, okay? So if you are deficient in micronutrients, how are you going to pull energy? You don't have any energy, right? So we have to have the micronutrients to be able to provide us the energy. As far as the most healthy, I guess I would say, healthy, food source that you should be eating would be a diet that is relatively high in protein. And I think what I like about the new food guide pyramid in comparison to the old food guide pyramid is that the new food guide pyramid is very biased towards helping you improve body composition.
Right.
And when I say body composition, notice I'm not saying weight loss. I'm saying body composition.
Yes,
the difference
big
is
difference.
We're trying to bias building quality lean body mass and oxidizing the fat we don't need, okay? Now, if you're able to optimize quality lean body mass, what happens is that as you're lifting weights, as you build more muscle, you build a better metabolic engine. This metabolic engine essentially allows you to burn more calories when you go do your workout. Burn more calories when you're taking your dog for a walk around the block. Burn more calories if you decide to lace up your sneakers and go for a run, right? You can improve oxidation of fat because you have a bigger engine. So even if you may happen to overconsume calories, if you have more muscle mass and you have a high protein diet, you will essentially be able to burn up more of that than if you were under muscled and had low muscle mass.
Can you talk about the way we store fat too? Because there's kind of, in my mind, there's like two different ways that we have fat. We have that fat you can see, right, which would be kind of the superficial fat. And then we have that deeper fat that's like connected in our abdomen to like our organs and stuff. Can you just kind of talk about like that, maybe how our body burns or utilizes that those two types of fat stores?
Yeah, so I'll keep it as simple as I can because I think that a lot of people are just like, what can I extract out of the podcast? Like,
yes,
how is this
of course,
help
right,
me, right?
Yeah.
So we have our basal metabolic rate. And then essentially our basal metabolic rate, what you want to add on to that is your energy multiplier, okay? So just as an example, if I was to strap you on to like a BMR machine,
yes,
your basal metabolic rate may come back as like 1,800 calories, 1,900 calories, maybe even 2,000. But the more muscle mass you have, it can be substantially higher.
Right.
I say that because the more muscle mass you have, it also helps to optimize your thyroid health. Your thyroid essentially kind of acts as a volume knob for your metabolism. So if you have a lot of muscle and you're feeding yourself appropriately, you can crank that thyroid knob up. So in terms of blood work numbers, we're talking like 3.0 or higher, which is phenomenal. If you are metabolically adapted because you undereat food and you starve yourself because you're trying to lose physical body weight, you're probably also losing muscle mass and you're turning your thyroid down. So we have the power to either increase our metabolism via that mechanism or decrease our metabolism via the same mechanism. The difference is what choices do we make? We can either crank it up or we can turn it down, okay? And so how do we actually store fat? I think that's important to understand.
Yeah.
You have your basal metabolic rate, you have your energy expenditure multiplier. So say, for instance, I'll just take 2,000 calories, 1,700 calorie BMR, energy multiplier, take it up to maybe 2,000 calories, okay? On a 24-hour time basis, if you overeat the 2,000 calories, those extra calories have to be stored as something, okay? Now, usually it's going to be stored initially as glycogen in your body, which ultimately that stored glycogen in your body will then convert to adipose tissue over time. Now, you were saying something very unique in regards to like what types of fats. So I believe that basically what ends up happening is that when you find yourself in an opportunity in life where, let's just say, for instance, you're overstressed and you're overeating, I think this is the biggest factor that a lot of Americans are dealing with right now is because they're overstressed and they're overeating.
Yes.
So therefore, that accumulation has to go to something.
Yeah.
It's being stored on your body for energy later on, just in case a famine happens to happen, right?
That's what your body's always in survival mode.
Yes.
On some level.
Sure.
It's always, I need to do something with this because one day I might not have more coming in.
The interesting thing about that is that you are the most likely to store extra body fat immediately after calorie restriction, right? So if you think about diets in general, everybody says, I started this new diet and I lost 20 pounds. But if you happen to really push yourself really hard in order to have that happen, your body's one step ahead of you. Once you start to overconsume what your metabolism's at that level, you will then begin to gain your weight back. Now, women actually deal with this a lot, more than likely because their diets are not high in protein and they're not resistance training enough. So therefore,
and they don't have the muscle mass.
Exactly. They're turning their metabolism down almost unintentionally. They're just following a diet, right? But then once they get down to that point, they're like, I can't follow this. I'm only eating 1,200 calories a day. What am I supposed to do? And then they start going back to their normal lifestyle, right? Eating more calories, and that makes it a lot easier to store body fat. So any calorie overage over a period of time will be stored as body fat, okay? Now, I think that one other thing that's not oftentimes talked about is the inability to manage your sleep quality and the stress on your body. And I say sleep quality first because if you are sleeping well, and when I say well, I don't mean 4 hours, I don't mean 5 hours, I mean a full 8 hours of sleep where you can basically go to bed, have good quality REM sleep for about 2 hours. You can sleep for roughly about 8 hours and wake up as the sun rises and start your day off. That's a good night's sleep. Whereas the other option is you get off work, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out. You eat a big dinner, you eat some treats, you crack a beer, have a glass of wine. That alcohol is going to negatively influence your sleep quality. The food right before bed is actually going to keep you awake and alert because your metabolism is trying to metabolize the food that you ate.
That's right.
And therefore, you're going to wake up in both of those instances. You're going to wake up first thing in the morning and actually be more insulin resistant. So your blood sugar would probably surpass 100 milligrams per deciliter. You'd probably be in those pre-diabetic levels. But because
which is anything over 129?
Well, it depends on the scale, but it's anything 99 or above.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to wake up in 3-digit land. You want to wake up 70 to 80, low 80s.
You want to be insulin sensitive when you wake up, but if you have negative sleep quality, you will wake up more insulin resistant. And so we have to then think about, okay, if I slept like crap last night, what are the side effects of me waking up the next morning and likely making a bad choice? They're very high because you're looking for more carbs, more coffee, more energy drinks. You're looking for all these things that are ultimately only going to make the situation worse. And so when we're thinking about how you store body fat, high stress situations and over consuming calories.
And that's, I would say, a lot of people check that box in this country.
Yes.
We all have some level of stress, some high, some low, some medium, and how do we deal with it? A lot of us aren't physically active. Physical activity really helps us cope with, is a great stress coping mechanism. And then we are in the land of abundance. Typically, I fall right into that category. I overeat based on my daily output, my basal metabolic necessity, right? I'm eating as if I'm probably still 25 years old, and that's not the case anymore. I've eclipsed 50, for God's sake. I sit at a desk for 8 hours a day, So I just, wow. I mean, obviously you said so many good things there. I'm sure people might have to rewind and re-listen to that section there. Just because so much of this stuff is just right in your wheelhouse, things that you talk about regularly on your platforms. One other thing that you said earlier, and we're going to continue. We have so much to kind of discuss, but there's a mentality out there, I think, with a lot of us, and I've had this too, where you feel like your activity level or your exercise can overcome poor nutrition habits. While that might be true when we're younger, because I would say if you are a highly active kid, that's true. Your activity level can supersede or overcome your poor nutritional habits. I would say I got away with eating stuff. I was eating a lot of protein, even in college, because I knew protein, dude. You got to eat your protein. So a lot of milk, a lot of eggs, a lot of chicken, a lot of tuna. Oh my gosh, I ate tuna like crazy because it was also reasonable in terms of money. But I would still get away with eating donuts and cereal and gosh, you said something before. You said Pop-Tarts. If I could pick the 3 worst things in the world that I could eat a lot of.
Sure.
I loved Pop-Tarts. I loved Goldfish crackers. This goes back to my youth, to being a kid, getting pushed around in the grocery store by my mom and eating Goldfish before we even bought them.
Right.
And Cheez-Its. Like, those are like three things that I would love. Those are like my little treats, you know, and I could eat. I mean, how many Pop-Tarts can you eat in one sitting? It's not hard to eat 4 of them.
A lot.
It's really not hard.
Yep.
How many Cheez-Its can you eat in one sitting?
Whole box.
Probably almost a whole box.
Yeah.
A whole bag of Goldfish. Yeah. Not a problem, right? And that goes back to the addiction part. But really what I'm trying to really talk about here is that our mindsets are that, oh, if I'm just more active, if I just follow the right exercise program, I can kind of overcome some of these things that I know I probably shouldn't be eating, that Danish or that donut or whatever I like to get with my coffee every day. So now all of a sudden you've taken your 300 to 400 calorie beverage and added another couple 300 calories with a sugary treat. Now you just had like 700 calories of crap to start your day. How many people are falling into that category? And it might even be something that you're buying. You might just get to your place of business and there's a platter out there by the coffee. And so you make yourself a coffee and you grab your muffin or your Danish or whatever. I'm like, gosh, that's just so many people. And it's almost like they're not even trying to be bad. It's just, here you go. Right? They're not going out of their way to do it. So it's just like everything kind of is coming against us, and it's really, really difficult. And then some of these things are just were confirmed by this old food pyramid where you're like, well, I am supposed to eat a certain amount of bread, and so a muffin is kind of like bread, so I'm okay, that kind of thing. You know, so do you have any feedback at that with anything I just said there?
I mean, I think the majority of like the old food guide pyramid, I think it at least kind of taught us some level of moderation.
Yes.
Just in terms of like, okay, how many fruits and vegetables should we consume?
Yes.
But I think the main issue was it did bias a lot of carbohydrates and grains, which ultimately now you fast forward 25 to 30 years and you realize how much of the world is pre-diabetic and insulin resistant, and if we just took some of those carbohydrates and we transitioned those calories on a 24-hour basis to protein, we would see a lot more people that were not pre-diabetic or insulin resistant. Right. And so you're talking about like having that coffee from Starbucks. You're talking about having those pack of Pop-Tarts or the donut when you get to the office. If we just convert those calories into a protein sparing macronutrient like protein, you would see a tremendous amount of health actually improve in the United States of America.
Just that one change.
But because we're not making those types of changes, that's why people are getting fatter and fatter and fatter, and blood sugar's at an all-time high just across America. Inflammation is higher than it's ever been, and you have a lot of people that are really tipping the scales and negatively influencing their health. But at the same time, we also have to understand that it is our own responsibility to begin to learn about nutrition in some capacity, because we want to be able to make sure we can live the longest, healthiest lives possible and create amazing memories with our families. Like, that's what we're really trying to do here. And when we talk about health, it's not because we're talking about, oh my gosh, you need to lose weight. It's like, why? Why do you want to? Or you can't, and you also can't wait to be motivated.
Right.
Like, being motivated or saying I'm waiting to be motivated basically just says you're waiting for a reason to take action.
That's right. That's right.
But the reality is, what's the reason going to be? Okay, so I'll give you an example the way that I see this. No man in my family ever lived beyond 66 years old.
Yeah, I know. I've heard you talk about that.
I just turned 40 yesterday. It scares the crap out of me. I'm like, my gosh, I have to be the one.
How funny. We're almost exactly 10 years apart.
I know.
Isn't that crazy, dude? We both just hit some big milestones.
We did. Happy birthday, by the way.
Happy birthday to you.
So
we're like a week apart.
Well, was your birthday the
13th?
13th, 21st. So
obviously, we're recording this in January. This will
Yeah.
release in the very beginning of February.
Yeah.
But
8 days.
It's 8 days apart.
8 days, yeah. And so when I think about that, I think about I'm not doing this for myself as the primary driver. Like, the reason I want to be healthy, the reason I want to live lean, the reason I want to control my blood sugar, the reason I want to age as slowly as possible is because I know that no man in my family lived past 66.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I need to do this for my children, for my wife. And I want to live a long time to basically be the example for everyone in my family, because I know what it was like to grow up to see everybody be unhealthy. And I want to make sure that when my kids grow up, they know what
You're the new model.
looks like to be healthy.
Yeah.
Right. And so with that being said, if we just made a couple of swaps, biasing protein over sugary treats and carbohydrates and adding a bunch of sugar to your coffee and whatever else may happen to be popular at the moment, and we just make those easy swaps, I think that from a calorie perspective could be one of the most important things that you ever do in your life.
I agree.
Swapping. Now, I want to bring up a research study. This was actually done by Jose Antonio from Nova Southeastern. And what Jose Antonio did, it was one of the highest protein intake studies of all time. I think it actually still is. And he had a group of men that overconsumed their calories by as much as 500 to 800 calories on a daily basis, only coming from protein.
Oh, wow.
So they just ate extra protein.
So let's go back to that 2,000 calorie intake, whatever it is. They would be eating 2,500 to 2,800, but all that excess was from protein.
The only difference that actually happened, because all the models show that you should gain fat.
Yes.
But they did it all from protein.
Interesting.
The models show you're supposed to gain fat if you eat in a calorie overage. The participants of that study actually lost body fat and built lean body mass.
You don't store an overage of protein as fat.
No. It gets used other ways.
It gets used or you pee it out, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So just think about that logically in terms of like, if you want to overeat anything, just overeat more protein. You know, like it's virtually
Some
impossible.
more hard-boiled eggs.
Well, think about this, right?
I love it.
You brought up the analogy of Pop-Tarts earlier.
Yes.
And right, like I don't know what the popular snack foods are nowadays, but let's just say, for instance, we laid out a bunch of ultra-processed, pre-packaged things. You know, some eggs might be the least appetizing to somebody, but the best bang for their buck in that moment, right? If we just said, hey, take 2 of these away, you can still have 2 of them, that's fine. But the other ones, just swap them out for like, you know, a grilled chicken breast, a sirloin steak, or maybe like 3 whole eggs, you know, whatever it is. Just make that swap. Your health would begin to tremendously improve because of the fact that you're actually taking away a lot of the stored glucose that you'd normally be consuming.
Right.
So remember earlier I talked about the engine?
Yes.
Right?
Right.
If you put gas in your engine, right, which is like filling it up with carbohydrates, so filling it up with carbs.
Right.
If we put gas in that engine, what essentially we're doing is just loading our glycogen stores and allowing our bodies to store more body fat and have all these reserves of energy. However, if you understand from a expenditure perspective that when you work out, you use some of that energy, how long does it take for you to not have any extra stored glycogen anymore? The bigger your engine is, the faster you can liquidate, right? You have a big garage sale, you get rid of everything.
That's right.
Right?
Oh, look at a Mustang, a 5.0 Mustang engine, right? It has pretty bad gas mileage.
Right. So fill up your truck with gas, and the bigger the engine is, like Mike has a huge Raptor out there, right?
Right.
Fill that up with gas.
Better
and
example.
Run it empty,
Yeah.
right? At the same token, take a Honda Civic, fill that up with gas, run it empty. The Honda Civic might get 50 miles per gallon. That big Raptor truck out there is only going to get 10.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the bigger engine you have, the faster you can get back to insulin sensitivity. Now, I do want to talk about fasting for a second because I think that
it's important.
with the general health of America, I will say that the new food guide pyramid is a course correct to what has traditionally been done. And I don't want to say it's the reason why America's in the position that we're in terms of health, but at the same time, it surely didn't help, you know? So if we are trying to build more muscle, we're trying to bias, keeping muscle and building a bigger engine, well, the reality is you can do that by resistance training and eating more protein. If you are insulin resistant or have a lot of body fat that you need to utilize, you have a lot of stored energy that you need to burn up or oxidize. Keep in mind that the way that we lose body fat is through oxidation. So when you get on a piece of cardio equipment, you start huffing and puffing and panting, you're oxidizing body fat out, right? We need to burn that fuel tank down to like a quarter tank, and then we can begin to feed more carbohydrate. But you have to ensure that on a daily basis, you're not over consuming the thing that you're not even using.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like, who eat most of the time, even a muscular person, not going to be able to burn up 2 packs of Pop-Tarts, just as an example.
Right.
But if an under-muscled kid eats 2 packs of Pop-Tarts, there's no way he's earning that off.
Right.
Unless he's going and playing 3 hours of football or something like that.
Right.
So I think with the general status of health in America right now, if you just simply said, I'm going to bias more protein intake, however you want to, that can be with whatever type of meat you want, high fruits and vegetables, but then at the same time, I'm just going to remove some of these ultra-processed foods, you would be able to take yourself from being insulin resistant, pre-diabetic, high inflammation, 4, 5, 6 extra inches of body fat around your waist, and liquidate that down pretty quickly as long as you knew what you were doing. Now, this is where I think having a guide or having a coach or having access to good quality information is very important.
Yeah.
Because we are essentially going to meet you exactly where you're at in that specific moment in time and say, this is what we need to do to improve your internal health as well as achieve your body composition goals. But I don't believe that you improve body composition goals without the internal health piece. So I think the internal health is a representation of what's happening on the outside. So I like to approach from the inside to the outside. And if we can optimize what's going on inside, which would be your blood sugar and things like that, then naturally the scale is going to start to come down. You're going to start to feel better because now you're living a lean life.
Yeah. I've done a lot of content with Dr. Boz over the years. I'm sure you know who Annette is. And she's just fabulous, and her content's great. And she talks a lot about blood sugar. That's like kind of her big thing. She's an internal medicine doctor.
Awesome.
And we have a whole bunch of clips that I've been sharing on my own personal Instagram. But we did a whole metabolic workout series here wearing CGMs and watching how our blood sugar changed throughout our workouts. And I've worn those monitors more than once. As my wife as well, just to kind of get a real handle on our health, because ultimately that really tells you a lot about your overall health and wellness, how you're metabolizing the food that you're eating, what your blood sugar is at night, what it is when you wake up, what it is right after you eat, what it is while you're working out, all these things. It's amazing what you can learn. So I recommend anybody to go check out her content too, because it's just so good, so rich with new studies and stuff. She's just fabulous at that. So definitely check out Dr. Boz. You're saying so much things. I've been, so many great points. I just making little notes as we roll here. But I know this to be very close to actual data is in the early 2000s, maybe around 2003, our country's obesity rate was in the 30 to 32% range. And this I remember because this is around the start of that show, The Biggest Loser, which we did a podcast on not that long ago, talking about the docuseries that came out called Fit for TV. Mike and Lindsay and I talked about that. But about at the end of that show ran for 17 years. So this would have been around 2020 or so. Our obesity rate as a country had climbed to 45%.
Wow.
In the 40s. So that show obviously didn't really help our awareness of how to not be obese as a nation, where we're creeping up around the 50% mark, which is frightening.
Well, I think if you look at that show in general, and I actually have some conversations about this with a fair amount of my clients, because we have worked with people that were very heavy. And the reality is that, granted, if you happen to watch the show, you would see that the exercise regimen's very extreme, emotionally and physiologically. The nutrition intervention that they put people on, it caused a lot of metabolic adaptation. So you're overstressing an organism. Granted, a lot of those people had a lot of extra weight that they could have lose. Like they very could have lost it in a better way, in my opinion.
Yeah, they could have not exercised at all and just cleaned up their diet and saw
they
dramatic
still would have
weight
lost a lot of weight.
Correct.
And the thing that I think is important is if you're that heavy, you can lose body fat and not really have to worry about any internal or metabolic health related issues. Because you got to think, like, the thing that's making them unhealthy is being that big. right? It's having that much body fat. It's making life so much more challenging to do simple tasks.
Yeah, you're at like 50% body fat.
Shouldn't be hard to take your dog for a walk, but I'm sure for them it was very hard. You have to think about the impact that it has on their ankles, their knees, their hips, their backs. What does it feel like to weigh 500 pounds or 400 pounds or something like that, and you're just going for a walk? You know, it's like putting 200 pounds on your back and walking around the gym.
Right.
Like, what does that feel
Exhausting.
like? I have no idea, right? And so the reality is, yes, they could have gotten away with doing it less, but it wouldn't have been good for TV.
Wouldn't have been good TV.
You know? So the interesting thing was that they actually did a research study on some of the Biggest Loser contestants. And they actually found that those contestants of that show, 7 years after it was over with, actually were still dealing with internal health and metabolic adaptation issues that happened during the show. 7 years later.
Isn't that amazing?
7 years later.
Even after maybe 10, 15, 20 years of poor habits and weight gain, a brief period of time, 2, 3, 6 months of this extreme dieting and exercise had years of implications afterward.
Well, and then the majority of the contestants ended up gaining all the way back. Plus more.
And some more, right?
Yeah. And so what I would advise anybody that's really watching this and paying attention that wants to make a big impact, like a big change in their life, I think it's fine to be aggressive in the beginning, but it's also important to make sure that you can make it a habit that you can execute with.
Yeah.
As normal of a basis as possible. So there was a study that came out called the Matador study, and they took overweight men, and they basically had two different groups. One of them did 2 weeks of calorie restriction at about 30 to 35% calorie restriction. Okay. And they did it only every 2 weeks. So they did 2 weeks of calorie restriction, 2 weeks of eating at or near their maintenance level of calories, 2 weeks calorie restriction, 2 weeks eating at
back and forth,
right? The other group just did 35% calorie restriction all the way through. The interesting thing was that if they would have applied something similar like this to maybe a new show or The Biggest Loser back then, they would find that the majority of the contestants would probably keep the weight off. Now, here's why. Is because every single time that they went aggressive in calorie restriction, they oxidized body fat, they lost weight. However, a lot of obese people are very scared to overconsume food because they said, this is what got me here.
That's right.
Right? But what they did was they only returned calories back to their baseline, so what their metabolism could metabolize. It was their maintenance level. They adjusted back up to 2,500 or 2,000 or whatever it was for 2 weeks, let them stabilize, and then they dropped them back in. More body fat loss, right? And then they went back up. Stabilize, more body fat loss, stabilize. So it was like lose body fat, stabilize it, lose body fat, stabilize it, lose body fat, stabilize it. Whereas the other ones just slash, just like The Biggest Loser.
Sure.
Right? They took all their food away. They had them over exercising.
Right. You're only gonna be eating 1,600 calories now.
They forced so much stress on the human organism, and they didn't build like solid, healthy habits to where the participants could not execute and they could not sustain it. Whereas in the research study that I'm talking about, the people that actually had the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off approach kept the majority of their weight off. And it's because they maintained their metabolism health at the end. Wow. So when we're talking about real fat loss, I think what we're really talking about is how are you going to exit the approach, right? So how many people start a diet and they have no exit strategy?
That's right, yeah. What's that day look at 6 months down the line?
It's like 12-week cut, just go.
Yeah, right. And you wanted to talk about fasting, and it was probably me cutting you off.
I did, yeah.
but that kind of plays into this, right?
It does,
because
yeah.
how are you utilizing your fasting? Because you're not just fasting for life. You're not just never eating again. It's some kind of intermittent fasting process.
Yeah, so for fasting, I'm going to say this, and I know it's going to be a bold statement, but I truly believe this because of my own experiences and my family history. If the majority of Americans that were pre-diabetic and type 2 diabetic right now decided to fast for even 3 to 5 days, we would have a significant drop in the amount of pre-diabetics and type 2 diabetics in the world. Just from fasting.
Just 1 3 to 5 day fast.
Yes. And I say as long as they could find some healthy habits afterwards.
Correct.
Right? And how you exit The fast, same, how do you exit fat loss? It all matters how you exit. But the fasting in and of itself is basically saying, I have this huge accumulation of stored glycogen because of the way that you've eaten.
Yes.
Think about all the honey buns and the Pop-Tarts and all the sugar you drink in your coffee. And all that.
Little Debbie.
There's this huge
Little Debbie
accumulation.
should be Little Devil. Okay?
There's this huge accumulation of all this stored stuff, right? And think about like this tub of protein, right?
Yeah.
You have this whole thing is full. You're pre-diabetic, you're insulin resistant. As you fast, you're just draining that tank. You're draining that tank all the way down to where, wow, I feel amazing. I have mental clarity. I'm sleeping well. I'm going to bed at a normal time. I'm waking up at a normal time, right? So you drain this glycogen store down to where maybe your blood sugar up here at the top is 120. You get it down into the 70s or even the 80s. Now you're insulin sensitive. And I'm going to be honest. Last time I did this, it took me like roughly about 5 days. And I went from, I was having a stress kind of anxiety attack issue like 5 years ago. And I realized that if I didn't take control over this, I could potentially end up like other adults in my family. And so I decided to do a experiment on myself. And I went from having 125, 132 blood sugars, which I was stressed out. I was doing all the things that normal America's doing. I was doing them in the same capacity that they normally would. Not intentionally, but just because life got stressful. So I said, I'm going to stop this now. I'm in control. What can I do? Because I haven't seen really low blood sugars in my life unless I was very, very lean, like 6, 7, 8% body fat. So I said, how long would it actually take somebody to go from pre-diabetic to being insulin sensitive? It took me 5 days.
Wow.
So I went from a 125, 132 fasted blood sugar to 75 in 5 days. I decided to fast for 5 days because I think what people...
Did you do water and electrolytes during it?
Water and electrolytes,
okay.
Sometimes a coffee here and there.
Okay,
but that
coffee.
That was pretty much it.
Yep.
And the reality that I was faced with was, wow, like this could be a really valuable tool for a lot of people, but how many people could actually follow it? So when we're talking about somebody that is overweight or obese, I think one of the best things that they can do is just try their best to pull back on carbohydrate intake for maybe 3 to 5 days. Bias the stuff that's good for you, like high vegetable intake, high protein intake. Eat as much of that stuff as you want to.
Yep.
But stay away from the accumulation of carbohydrates because that's actually what's going to make you get insulin sensitive again. But you also have to make sure and manage that you can't be super low carbohydrate for a very long period of time because that can actually cause a stress response. So you want to manage that. But again, the exit strategy of how you either go into a fast or you exit a fat loss phase matters. And it really just depends on what can you adhere to. So I'll give you a few examples. This is why I'm not a fan of super aggressive fat loss diets. This is why I'm a really big fan of focusing on the foundations. So like you talked about the old food guide pyramid, the foundation was like, I think it's 6 to 8 servings of grains a day.
6 to 11.
Right? 6 to 11.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a lot of carbs, right? But if we build a foundation of health on tracking your calories in, exercising routinely, sleeping well, avoiding overstimulation, right? Managing your stress the best you can, getting in good micronutrient-rich, high-protein foods, and just simply trying to do things that put you around people to make you happy and like to help elevate your mood. Those are the most important things when it comes to physical health, in my opinion. So we can talk back and forth about the old food guide pyramid and how bad it was and all these different things. You can even talk about like trying to go as optimal as possible because that's what we're getting a lot into now is people that are like picking every food apart. Have you seen those social media memes where it's like eggs are bad, bread's bad, oats bad, all this stuff is bad. And it leaves America standing there and all these people that want to make a change, it leaves them sitting there like, what the hell am I supposed to eat?
Yeah, I've always had a problem with anyone making an egg to be a bad food item. I understood from a competitive bodybuilding perspective why an egg white made sense. Okay, you're trying to decrease some of that fat intake because you're on a highly restrictive diet. You're, down to the T, but that's a very small percentage of the population. Teeny, right? And I'm sure you're a competitive bodybuilder. You've done shows and stuff like that. You've been 5-6% body fat for a period of your life. It's very hard to get there. I've seen people in front of me like struggling to maintain, to get down to that. So I get that. But the whole egg, is one of the best foods in the world for anybody, and you can't argue against it. And we need everything that comes from that egg. And it assimilates, is one of the best protein sources in terms of assimilation. Doesn't it have the highest assimilation rate?
Typically, an egg is going to have some good, healthy omega-3, omega-6 fatty acids, which ultimately help to fuel your cholesterol. It's also going to be high in protein. So it's like a fair distribution of fats and protein. And I agree with you. I think a whole egg is one of the best food sources that you can eat. But circling back to the idea that we were talking about earlier, which is like, if you watch social media for long enough and you really want to make a change in your life, it's so confusing because people don't know what information to trust.
Yes, right.
And so if you have these prestigious doctors and these like social media personalities saying, never eat oatmeal because it's bad, never eat this fruit because it thinks it's being attacked, don't eat vegetables because they're alive organisms,
correct. I know.
Don't eat the animals because you should only go plant-based. It's like, what are you supposed to eat?
What am I supposed to do?
And so the reason I like having the role and responsibility of just tracking my intake is because as long as my calories are equated at the end of the day, I understand that is the biggest piece of the puzzle. Now, you could, by all means, you could go on a carnivore and ketogenic and all these Paleolithic diets and all these different types of diets. At the end of the day, if you overconsume calories, you can gain body fat. Okay, it's just foundational. If you overconsume
the
calories,
only plus would be is if you're overconsuming protein.
Well, you would be able to get jacked and build muscle and potentially lose body fat, which is great. But like very few people will go on carnivore for long enough to actually like stick with it for the rest of their life.
Right.
Even the creator of the carnivore diet, I don't know if you read the carnivore code or not, right? But
no, I never did read
now
that.
He implements carbohydrates into his day because he knows the benefits of them.
Yes.
Right. So if you think about what he's really doing, yes, he's an advocate for healthy food consumption, but he's also tried something, thought it was the best thing on the planet, wrote a book about it, marketed the heck out of it, had a lot of guys convert to just doing a carnivore diet, made a lot of guys insulin sensitive, which is phenomenal, got a lot of guys jacked and lean, which is great.
Right.
But then you also have to understand that, realize, I can't follow this for the rest of my life.
Right. This is very different. I'm never going to eat an apple again.
Should probably add some fruits back in. Should probably add some grains back in, but time them accordingly. Right. So this is why I'm a big advocate of tracking your calories and your macronutrients. So like identifying, okay, if I eat that whole egg, I know it's got 6 grams of fat, 6 grams of protein, and 0 carbs. Right. If I eat that, that 6-ounce sirloin steak, I know that that's got about 10 grams of fat and about probably 40 grams of protein, right? If I eat these certain things, I know the value of them now, and I'm going to primarily try to eat a whole food diet. I think that's really, really important.
Totally.
If it has one name, broccoli, chicken, rice, carrot, like oats,
that you could pronounce,
milk, like
without practicing
these things
the pronunciation.
Are normal foods that you should be consuming.
Yeah.
But so much of the consumption issue is like it's that dopamine addiction to the sugar and to these things that are very ultra processed because they're genetically modified to make you desire them.
Yes.
So you eat one, you want to eat another one, you want to keep on going. But if I was to put 4 honey buns on the table, right, and give you a glass of water, you could plow those down, no problem.
No problem.
It just dissolves and it just makes a lot of space in your belly. You don't even get full, right? Now, if I put a 1-pound sirloin steak on the table,
I'd be working at that.
Oh, you're gonna start sweating.
Yeah,
metabolism's gonna go on fire.
Be John Candy in The Great Outdoors. Oh my gosh, remember that scene?
Hard.
Do you remember The Great Outdoors? Where he had to eat he had to finish the fat in order to get the free meal for his whole family.
I can't. Yeah,
it's a great scene.
But yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is, it's very hard to eat that many calories from whole food.
Yeah.
Again, you could go steak, you can go potato, you can go some rice, a lot of fruits and vegetables and all of that. Very hard to overeat those things.
Very.
I've had a lot of experiments with myself even where I'm like, how much protein could I eat before I'm like completely just stuffed and full? For me, it's like 10 ounces. I eat like 10 ounces of meat and I'm like, I don't even want to eat
I'm
anything.
about the same.
Yeah.
if I go out to eat with my wife, or even better, we buy good steaks and bring them home so I can grill them at home. About a 10, 12 ounce New York strip, or KC strip, as my wife calls it. She's from the Midwest, so it's Kansas City strip out there. And we'll get those are our favorite steaks. Yeah. And that is perfect for me. I have zero desire to eat anything more if I've had that, like a nice baked potato, and we'll do like roasted broccoli or asparagus or Brussels sprouts or a combination of those things.
100%.
And for me, that's like the perfect meal. And I'm so satisfied with that meal.
Yeah.
Butter on my potato, some salt and pepper. I mean, that's it. It's like, for me, that's like my dream meal. It's like, I wish I could afford to eat that just about every night for dinner.
Right.
B, have the time to prepare it for myself every day. But I realize it's a land of convenience thing too. It's like, what can I get quickly, afford and fit into my very busy life? Yeah. And it's very, very difficult. And people, I think, they're not only confused, they're like have anxiety about it. They know kind of like what intuitively they know what's healthy and they know what's unhealthy. Yeah. It's very hard for those two worlds to kind of like meet unless they're good at preparing. Yeah. Preparing on the weekends for your week. Yeah. That kind of stuff.
I mean, if you watch that social media content that I'm talking about, all these things are bad, right? It'll make you overly analyze what things are optimal or best, right? To where like you're trying to analyze, should you have a banana over an orange, or like a cucumber over salad, or like this guy said you shouldn't eat vegetables because they feel like they're being attacked, or whatever, right? And it's like, it's simple. It really is. Yeah. Like, use your intuition. Think about it. Does this seem like a good choice?
Yeah.
Does this food have a name, and did it come from the earth? Right? Just weigh that out logically. Say, I want to make a declaration to myself that I'm going to eat the foods that make me feel my best. I don't know anybody that could plow down 3 honey buns and be like, I feel amazing.
That's right.
But if you eat a steak, you eat some chicken, you eat some eggs, you have some onion, pepper type of thing, maybe even have some rice on the side, a baked potato, I feel awesome.
Be sure to come back for part 2 of our conversation with William Grazione in the next episode of Strong by Design. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. And if you found this episode helpful, leave us a quick review and share it with someone who's on their own journey to living strong by design.